Hello everybody, I hope you're happy and healthy. Welcome back to Home of the Braves, the series where I take the Atlanta Braves to the postseason and hopefully the World Series. Unfortunately, in the first year I've missed the playoffs. I've just not quite managed to do it. We did finish a little bit over 500, but unfortunately our record didn't quite get us into the postseason with a wild card berth. If we want to just quickly look through this team schedule, I started playing manually going into the games and playing them in this series here against the Mets, and you can see from here to about 10 games later against Milwaukee, I was on an absolute tear, beating divisional rivals, the Mets and the Phillies, sweeping Milwaukee, and I was really optimistic at this point that I was going to make the playoffs. Unfortunately, in this first game against Philly, Ozzie Albies went down with a season-ending injury, and I got swept. And then against the Nationals in this game, I believe it might have been this one. One of these games I lost Acuna Jr. for the rest of the season. And I'm not just talking this season, it would have been the postseason as well. So I guess in some ways it wouldn't have mattered. I think I would have lost in the wild card game regardless. But still a little bit disappointing. We have one more game to play against Houston, which I'll simulate. In this episode, I'll be primarily going through and showing what the arbitration looks like and what the free agency filing looks like, just to give you guys an idea of how I structure my offseason. And then I'll do another video about how the offseason looks after this one. And then we will go into the second season with the Braves and get an idea of what this team is actually capable of, hopefully. Obviously, we'll just go quickly through our roster here because it is the end of the season, so we want to get an idea of how our team performed. Soroka, I mean, he was okay. 356 is good, but the reality is that this guy should have been doing a little bit better, in my opinion. Last season, he had a 2.68 ERA and a 1.64 ERA plus, and this season, both those stats were down, and it is what it is. Max Fried came in. He had a great year for me, and really happy with his performance. I know it's only marginally better than Soroka's, but based on his stats, I wasn't sure if he would actually be able to perform up to the level that I needed him to, but he was great. Probably one of my better pitchers all season. We had Chris Archer, who was a bit of a flop, but I'm going to buy him out. That's just what I'm going to do. And Bryce Wilson, he performed really well. Like I predicted, I wasn't sure because I haven't actually used Bryce Wilson, I don't think, very much in the past or with any other save. This is my first playthrough of OOTP, so I'm like learning the game as I go, or at least this rendition of the game as I go, just so you get an idea of where I'm at. Just looking at his pitch attribute stats, I had a feeling that he might outperform his actual rating, and it looks like he has, so I'm quite happy with that. His potential has gone up, so that's good. Ian Anderson I brought in halfway through the season. He performed quite well for me, so I'm going to keep him up next year. That's part of the reason why I'm going to buy out Chris Archer. I also have a couple of young pitchers in the minors that are going to come up and hopefully make a difference. Will Smith, great closer. He was one of the, almost led the entire MLB in saves, so really happy with that. Chris Martin performed pretty well. Luke Jackson, meh, like average, I guess. Grant Dayton kind of fell off a cliff towards the end of the season. Jacob Webb came up as a relief pitcher like just a few games ago because I had some injuries. Tony Watson was performing really well for San Fran, which is why I traded for him. Basically flopped hard. And Mark Melanson, he's making $14 million a year. That'll be good to get off the books. Tyler Jones has been okay. I think he sort of came in. I didn't expect him to have an ERA under 4, so he's sort of beaten expectations. And then I've just called up Corbin Klaus. As far as my lineup goes, my positional players, Travis d'Arnaud, he's done the job for me. Batted 280, 11 homers. He had 50 plus RBIs. Like, he was useful. 24 doubles. Like, not a bad player for me. I'm going to definitely keep him for next season. He had a 2.3 WAR score, just under league average OPS plus. Freddie Freeman ended up with not quite 30 home runs, so a little bit underperforming in that sense. His average is sort of it's going down. Ended up with just a 4 WAR, and you would expect Freddie Freeman to actually put up better numbers than this. I'm so torn of what I want to do with Freddie Freeman. I do want to give him an extension on the contract, but you get a feeling that this guy's going to really fall off a cliff, And unless you pay him big money up front, which I might do, it's tough to say whether or not he's ever going to be worth it. Aussie Albies, he ended up performing really well for me. He had a really slow start, and he ended up having a great season. So really happy with the Aussie Albies. Johan Camargo, he ended up having a great season as well. So really pleased with him. Austin Riley, so-so. I mean, really his second campaign in the big leagues, so I wasn't expecting too much. He put up 12 home runs though. And Solarte I just called up for a couple games with injuries at the end of the season. Echeverria ended up batting .281, so not terrible. Had a pretty good fielding percentage and fielding stats as well, so we ended up with a 3 WAR. He's going to want too much money though, so unfortunately I'm just going to have to let him go in all likelihood. Dansby Swanson, again, good season from him. He barely played any games, well below half, but still performed pretty well in those games. Duval, similar story. He ended up with 10 home runs just like he had in the previous year, and 110 at bats or so. Eddie Rosario, what a pickup this guy was. Very pleased with his trade in the end. He batted .342 and really was a major part of the resurgence of my team, so happy with him. Enciarte had a good season, which is good because he's got one more year in his contract before I have to probably buy him out with a team option. And hopefully he this season he definitely lived up to his paycheck and his expectations, so happy with that. Ronald Acuna Jr. was pretty much brutal for me, so I don't really know how else to say it. He definitely underperformed. 15 home runs, .236. The reason he only has 368 at bats is because Nick Markakis was batting .292. He was batting over 300 all season in a contract year, and he was getting on base. He was just as good in the field. Well, technically a little bit worse in the field, but his actual percentages were, pretty good, and Ronald Acuna Jr. just was underperforming for me. I don't like guys that bat under 250 unless they're really raking the home runs and the RBIs in, and I guess you could make the argument that Ronald Acuna Jr. was in the realm, especially with the RBIs, but overall I was disappointed with him, and I think that you would agree with me if you had a guy batting that low. 230 is not, it's just not good enough for the majors. Okay, so Kyle Wright will be a starting pitcher. Let's just switch his position to starting pitcher. So he'll be a starter for me next season. And I can't bring the guys off the IL yet. And so he'll take Chris Archer's place. And then I still have a couple of rookies cooking in the minors, and that would be Duplantier, Sean Newcomb, who played a lot of games in the majors for me this season, Tuki Toussaint, Kyle Muller as well, and even Jesiel De La Cruz. So I have quite a few starting pitchers lined up, even Jay Bukaskis, that's a tough last name, who normally develops quite well. Sometimes you have to switch him to a reliever in OOTPs, but he performs quite well. Same with Thomas Burrows. In previous OOTPs, he's been really effective, so we'll see how he develops. And then Nolan Kingham, same thing. Unfortunately, he's got a torn flexor, so he'll be out. He's got an elbow injury that'll keep him out for all of next season. He'll probably never develop, unfortunately. So, I mean, if we look at the squad, we have potential. We're going to have a large turnover this year, and there will be a number of players that I have to basically go and manage as far as Rule 5 draft eligibility. Alright, so the season is now over, and the Dodgers have defeated the Astros and won a title, finally. They've been sort of hot for the last number of years and never managed to get over the hump. And I find it a little bit strange that Houston made it all the way to the World Series, but they managed to. And they were defeated in the end by the Dodgers. So the Dodgers have won. And let's see here, Chris Archer, team option. Void last year, the contract. That's a tough one to take. I mean, we could have traded him, I guess, but I don't know. Let's just get rid of him. I don't want to have to eat any of the salary is what I'd be afraid of with that. Review of the season goals from the owner. Basically, it looks like I'm not going to get fired, but the National News had an article about our season failing. We still have time to get an extension out of Freddie Freeman, so that was a goal that he gave me. I still don't know if I want to, so our owner is good with our performance. Okay. So, achieve a winning record next year, upgrade at third base. Why would I need to upgrade at third base? Johan Camargo just had a great season for me, so I'm not going to be doing that. Freddie Freeman to an extension. They want more people in the stadium. Build a team that can bring a championship home in the next 4 seasons. So, let's see. Our budget has, I think, improved a little bit, just marginally. Okay, so if you want to open up your arbitration, all you have to do is click on MLB, the drop-down menu, and click on Salary Arbitration. So we have a number of fairly important players going into arbitration this year, so we do want to make sure that we get them for the right number. So Max Fried, there's no, at least as far as I'm aware, there's no perfect method of doing this. Basically, you have to understand that if a player is basically sitting here at a certain salary, his first year that he's eligible, so for instance, I think it's 3, potentially 4 years, yeah, I think it's 3, is your first big jump, right? So you go from a base salary of $565,000 a year to all of a sudden something like 3 or 5 or 8, depending on how many years of major league service you've got and how you've performed in that last season. So Max Fried, he's currently making $565,000. He's probably going to ask for something like 4.4 or 4.3, and to ensure that I win, I'm going to give him a higher number, because someone like this, he's gone 10-2, 3.48 ERA. That's really good stats for someone at sort of his age and his current salary. So he's going to be, in all likelihood, he'll be awarded the number that he wants from the arbitrator that is managing this particular case. So I'm going to give him more than what is sort of recommended. So it's given me the offer of 3.4, but what I'm going to do is bump this up to 3.85, and hopefully win with that number. Basically, you're hoping to walk away with a number that you're more comfortable with. So if you can win at 3.85, you know, it's recommended that you put it at 3.4. But if he's asking for 4.4 and you lose arbitration, all of a sudden, instead of paying 3.85, you're paying 4.4. So the way that I've found as most effective is basically overpay what is recommended. So if I put for Mike Soroka, I put 5.75 change. Even though that's higher than what's recommended, and maybe I could get him for like 5.6 or something like that. If he says, hey, I want 6.5, and the arbitrator looks at it and says, well, what you've offered at 5.3 or whatever it was before, 5.2 or 5.0 is just way too small of a number, and we're going to award him the victory in arbitration, and he's going to end up getting paid a significant amount higher than what you've anticipated. And that doesn't just affect this season, that also affects future years. So if all of a sudden you've paid him 6.4 mil in the upcoming season in the arbitration the next year, instead of it being 8 or something like that, a number close to that, it'll be like at 9.2, right? So each year it has a compounding effect where you're paying way more than you are wanting to, essentially. Luke Jackson, what do we do with him? I was kind of disappointed with him. 4-6, 4.14 ERA, so I might be able to actually get him for 2.2. I really don't want to have to pay more than this. If he ends up winning arbitration and makes 3 mil, I'm definitely going to have to dump him. And not only will I have to dump him, I'll probably have to eat some of the salary as well. AJ Minter was injured. Hector Sanchez, yeah, we'll withdraw that one. Johan Camargo, this is the reason I'm not sure why they need me to upgrade at third base. This guy's making, I'm going to offer him 2.2, and that's really cheap for a number for his production. So Solarte, definitely withdraw that. Dansby Swanson, let's go 3.75, although I can't imagine that he wins anything more because he barely played for me. Duvall, yikes, 5 mil for a guy like this. This is one where I'm tempted to walk away. I'm going to come back to that one. Eddie Rosario, yeah, he's going to want a lot of money, but he's probably earned it with a 4 WAR score. So 11.5 is what we'll give him. Evan Gattis, yeah, definitely let him walk. Hechavarria, let's see what he wants just to get an idea. So if we offer him extension, 7.5 a year, which is too much. But if we submitted a qualifying offer. So I'm not going to submit a qualifying offer on any of these guys. Let me just see what this guy wants. No. So here's the thing. A qualifying offer works as such. If I was to submit a qualifying offer for Nick Markakis, I won't, but let's say I do, and he takes the offer. He is now on my team for the $15 million for the one season, for the upcoming season, just for the $15 million. If he declines my qualifying offer, he then is able to go to free agency. And when he's in free agency, any team can offer him a contract. When another team offers him a contract and he signs with them, that team that signed Nick Markakis gives me a draft pick in the first supplemental round. Usually that's how it works. It depends on the player and his skill and etc. But I think for the most part it's the first supplemental round, so it's just after the first round of the draft of the player entry draft. So anybody that is maybe making too much money or wants way beyond what you can afford, you can, at the very least, like if you weren't able to trade them off for someone, or you should always try to, but if you can't, you can submit a qualifying offer to that player. And even though you don't get any return like you would if you were to trade them, like a prospect or whatever you're looking for, at the very least you get a draft pick. So that's kind of how that works. And then we have a couple of players without compensation. We're just going to let all these guys walk. And then we'll look at our minor league roster. So this is how this works here for the minor league team. If you go to front office and upcoming FA and all players, what I typically do is click on the side here and take a look at their demand on the side. So Luis Escobar, no demand. He's okay with a minor league contract. Definitely want to re-sign him. Gabriel Moya, he's torn his UCL, so I won't re-sign him. All these guys want major league contracts up here, so I'm not going to be re-signing any of them. And then I go down the list just as so and look for the players with the highest potential, but the ones that also aren't looking for a major league deal, and just make sure that they're signed. I also look for positions that are tough to fill normally, so that's starting pitcher and catcher, sometimes shortstop. I'll sign Alejandro Salazar as well. Let's see if there's any more starting pitchers or catchers. There's one, Nate Carnes. Well, he's 32. No, don't need him. Okay, so the guys that I've signed here, or at least ticked off on the sidebar here, I then right click and offer minor league extensions, and they should all accept that. And I didn't. There's one guy I had to look at, Duvall. Oh, what do you guys think? Would you re-sign Duvall? I think that I can probably do better than Duvall in terms of a like a rotation player in the outfield. So let's see. We're gonna lose Markakis. That's okay because we have Acuna Jr., Ender Inciarte, and Rosario. So that's my outfield: Rosario, Inciarte, and Acuna Jr. And as far as my infield goes, I'm gonna have Swanson, Camargo, Riley, Ozzie Albies, Freddie Freeman, Travis d'Arnaud. So what am I? I'm basically looking for maybe a shortstop if there is one available. I don't need a starting pitcher, so I need maybe a relief pitcher, maybe two, and then like a rotation option in the outfield if I don't resign Duvall, and maybe another rotation option in the, even though Riley is versatile, I'll probably need another rotation option in the infield. Now, do I have anybody up and coming in my minor league system? I have Christian Patch. Okay, so I don't need a I don't need a outfield because I'll just pick up Patch. So you know what, with that in mind, I'm gonna let Duvall go. $5 million in arbitration is too much for a guy that only hits 109 at bats a season. So withdraw his and let him walk, and that opens up a little bit more money for me in free agency. And we'll see what free agents are available once we get to salary arbitration. Okay, we're here, the big day, salary arbitration. So now we get to see what our arbitration results are. And in the meantime, I've gone through and signed some personnel in my minor league. So as you can see, most of these are upgraded now. Not all of them, but for the most part, they've been improved. Still having a debate whether I get rid of Snitker or not. I'm just, to be honest, I'm just not sure what I should do with him. He's been pretty good for me, and the team did turn it around, but there are some decent managers on the free agency, well, the manager free agency block, so worth looking into, but at this point in the season, we're not quite there yet. Okay, so let's see what happens with the arbitration. So you'll get an email that looks like this, or a bunch of emails, I should say. So let's see what we've won here. Dansby Swanson, arbitrator ruled in favor of the team. So yes, he wanted almost 4.4 mil as I predicted. Rosario wanted 13.7 mil, and we offered him 11.5, and we were granted winners. Grant Dayton, we won that one. Luke Jackson, we won this one as well. Max Fried, so Max Fried won in salary, and this is one I thought he might win because, and I was very close again with what I thought might be the arbitration. 4.25, which is, I said 4.4, I think, so 4.25 is not terrible. Johan Camargo, oh look at that, so we won that one as well. Shoot, unfortunately we've lost Soroka's, which is maybe the most important one because this is the one that I'm worried about compounding. And as you can see here, he did ask for 6.8 and he got it, which I'm surprised because he didn't have the greatest season, but it is what it is. And then we won the other two. So we lost two. Both of them are the starting pitchers, and this one kind of hurts. But I would have been upset, for instance, if we had lost Swanson's or Rosario's. Would have been really rough if we had lost his, and I could have seen it happening because he hit 350 while being traded to my team. So, it wouldn't have been outrageous to think. So that's basically how arbitration works, and you get an idea of basically what you can do in order to win arbitration. And now we get to look at the free agents. And in particular, the international free agents are the ones I like signing. Oh my gosh, this is one of the worst free agent classes I've ever seen. I like signing international free agents because you don't have to give a draft pick when you sign them, but this is atrocious. This is honestly terrible. So let's see who's on the free agency. We won't actually get through any of it today. This is for the next video, but I'm just curious to see who's out there. And what did we say we needed? We needed a shortstop potentially, and there is Simmons, Andre Simmons, and Asdrubal Cabrera, who had a good season. And I'm not really interested in Freddie Galvis, but well, there are options out there. So it's not like we. I mean, if we could get Simmons for 10 mil, like that would be, I think, pretty good. He is a great defender, so that would help with our pitching. And let's see. Let's see the infielders that are available. Well, there is DJ LeMahieu as well. That's kind of an interesting one. He only wants 12 mil. Probably for a lot of years. Let's take a look. Actually, not bad. Okay, so something to think about as we move on throughout the home of the Braves. And hopefully next season we have a little bit more of a push. Obviously, some of the teams around me will have lost some of their players to free agency as well. We have as well, but you never know. With Chapman coming back next season, a decent rotation, and a little bit of my own sprinkling of prospects and free agency signings, you never know. We could have a good season next year. Guys, thanks for tuning in to this video of Home of the Braves. If you've made it this far, drop a like on the video, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Until then, take care.